Making national headlines this week, a suspected Chinese spy balloon now out of the sky after the U.S. military shot it down on Saturday as it floated off the coast of South Carolina and over the Atlantic. When speaking to the press on Saturday, President Biden says that although he ordered the balloon to be shot down sooner, they had to wait for the best time to prevent damage to anyone on the ground. The Federal Aviation Administration helped in the takedown by pausing all flights in and out of 3 airports in the Carolinas. The suspected spy balloon was first spotted flying over Montana a few days ago. In a statement from the Chinese Foreign Ministry, China expresses its strong dissatisfaction and protest against the U.S. use of force to attack civilian unmanned aircraft. They add that the Chinese side has repeatedly informed the U.S. side after verification that the airship is for civilian use and entered the U.S. on accident. Joining me now is Chuck Todd, moderator of Meet the Press. Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning, Christy.
Just days before the State of the Union, the U.S. military shot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon. How much do you expect President Biden to talk about China in his State of the Union address? How much should he talk about China?
Oh, I think China was going to be a big part of his address regardless of the balloon incident. I mean, when you look at the economic program that he just passed last year, much of it is about trying to bring manufacturing back to the United States. What's that about? It's about sort of decoupling from China, sort of bringing back some of these things that we had outsourced over the years, particularly computer chips. We want to manufacture more of those here for our own national security reasons. And I think this is just the latest reminder of that. So this is one of those, getting tough on China is one of the few issues that has bipartisan support. So I expected it to be a big part of his speech, and I expect it to be even a bigger part because I think this balloon incident has captured the public's imagination. And I think the president, given how quickly the State of the Union is coming up on us, so I have a feeling it'll be probably a larger part of the speech than it was intended.
Also this week, Vice President Kamala Harris is making a stop here in Georgia. Our state has been crucial for Democrats, and Atlanta is hoping to get the 2024 convention, and the DNC this weekend voted to move Georgia near the front of its primary schedule in 2024. Question to you is, what happens if Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger does not agree to move the Georgia date? Who wins that tug of war?
Well, the state law is going to win the tug of war unless the state party is willing to fund the primary themselves. In some states, that is the case, where if the state won't move the primary, the state party can go ahead and do that themselves. I do not think that is something the National Democratic Party wants to pay for, but that is how South Carolina is a sort of a partnership. The state party funds a big chunk of the primary process. The state helps implement the primary itself with the voting, but the cost of it actually accrues back to the state party. So you could do that. I just don't know if there's going to be an appetite for that. But I'll tell you this, I'd be curious to see if the Democrats will use the convention as leverage, trying to convince Governor Kemp and Secretary of State Raffensperger, who are both Republicans, to say, hey, don't you want the economic upside of what a convention brings to Atlanta? Now, I don't know if that's going to work. And given Governor Kemp, I think, is still smarting a bit from the All-Star game and how he blames Democrats for costing Atlanta the All-Star game, the Major League Baseball All-Star game a couple years back. So I don't know if that would work, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was an attempt at trying to coax them into moving their primary calendar.
All right, we'll see how it goes. Thanks so much, Chuck. Meet the Press airs at 10 right after 11
All right,
Alive
Christy.
Weekend Morning News.